form that's very akin to this, which is cynicism. And I have a quote from Karl Marx from the Communist Manifesto. All that is solid melts into the air. Well, that may sound somewhat Buddhist. All that is holy is profane. Oops. And man is at last compelled to face with sober senses the real conditions of life and his real relations with his kind, which are samsaric. So, now, the most pithy statement of this that I have ever found is something that I heard. This is a student questioning a spiritual teacher. It's kind of eclectic. The teacher was a South African woman who was eclectic and combining Hinduism and Buddhism and talking about the witness, which is not something you get in Buddhist talk. And she's now telling her teacher about an experience. And the experience, the first part of it is she goes on a real spiritual high and she understands everything and she sees the witness and then she crashes. And she says, all I could find, oh, and by the way, this is a very well-educated, sophisticated person whose native language is not English, but you'll see her English is, it's the kind of speech that normally you only get in writing. And boy, if I could talk like this, I just dictate books and flip paper for her. Anyway, all I could find was an icy cold, repugnant, separated, nihilistic kind of witness. I felt totally alone and went into a panic. She elaborates on that. Nothing had meaning. A dark, windowless, doorless room, horrible. This is where it is right now. I cannot escape the feeling, the belief, the certainty that this is the true reality of how it is. Notice when you're depressed, that I'm sadder but wiser, this is how it really is. When you strip away time, memory, judgment, desire, you have nothing. No meaning. Is this the true emptiness? If it is, how do you live with this and look so cheerful all the time? And if you've noticed, these teachers, they look cheerful. They're sometimes wrathful, but, it's so, okay. So all of these have focused in a way on death, either actual physical death or imminent execution, or more generally feelings of emotional and spiritual deadness. And this is what triggers this existential alienation. So let's look at some Buddhist inroads into this. The story of King Ashoka and his brother. 300 years after the Buddha's death, India, at the time of the Buddha, India was this patchwork of little states ruled by kings, all with their own armies. And 300 years later, Ashoka went out and conquered most of the continent. So the lions are the seal of Ashoka, the lion head, and as you can see, that's most of India that was part of his kingdom. And after he had done that, you know what conquering of continents will involve, he realized what he had done. He'd also killed off some of his older brothers, so he could be king, which was how people did things. And he had remorse and took up Buddhism and made it more or less the state religion or the state belief system, and erected many pillars inscribed with various Buddhist things, including the life of the Buddha. And this is why it's his pillars that gave scholars the idea that there actually was a real person at a particular time who founded Buddhism, as opposed to some kind of sun god or something. In his new role now as a compassionate person, and by the way, he made many laws that he established the first hospitals anywhere and the first orphanages and things like that. And he also formed close relations with his younger brothers, particularly one brother who was now, he's the younger brother of the king, and he was kind of doing the playboy thing. And one day, Ashoka catches him in bed with one of Ashoka's queens, for which the law of the land was death, immediate death. So the guards come in and grab the brother, and Ashoka says, no, wait, no execution. You can be for 1 week. For 1 week, says to his brother, okay, you want it to be me, right? Great. For the next week, you can have all of my things, any of my queens, any of the best food, the gardens with the peacocks running around, my chariots, my elephants. Just have a great time. So, and then, then we'll cut your head off. And in a week, he comes back and says, well, could you have a good week? And the brother says, oh, this was the worst week of my life. How could I enjoy anything? What I really wanted, and I wanted to talk to some of these Buddhist monks, and that's it for me. That's all that I want. Can I have another week without all of these glorious things? Just send in the monks and let them teach me. And Ashoka said, oh, not only can you have another week, you can have your whole life. This is what I wanted to show you. And so there's so his brother becomes a Buddhist monk, and this is a representation of it. And so now when this very articulate student addresses her teacher, what does the teacher reply? And the teacher says, well, that's just samsara. That's just ego. That's just your mind and your emotions on what that teacher called a downward spiral. So she had sort of brought in psychology, and she had a whole system where you go through, as you start, you go up, and then as you start to go down, first there's the shock of realizing you're going down, and then you get angry, and then you feel helpless, and then you go on and down and down and down and down. Bleh. But no, that's not the true emptiness. That's the downward spiral, and that spiral, or whatever you want to call it, can be seen in ways, either by Western psychology or by Buddhism. So Western psychology calls it depression. You don't get what you want. You believe you never will. You start feeling helpless. The more helpless you feel, the less you do to get the things that you need. And pretty soon you end up like one of the learned helplessness rats, just sitting in the corner of its cage and waiting to be shot. And another way of talking about it is you turn anger about not getting what you want inward and start beating up on yourself. And look, here are all the kinds of therapies you know about this. And there's the psychoanalytic and cognitive behavioral and biological and a host of others. And they're all working, Buddhism would say, within the samsaric system to make things better, which is a good thing to do, but they're not actually seeing it. And my take on it is, so here you have another opinion from me, that individual Western therapists, people, may be great and natural healers who go beyond the theory and can affect people more than the theories would necessarily say. Now, the Buddhist thing is that Shunyata means a ground of openness. So at your base, you are unformed, you're innocent, you're pure, you're unclothed, all of these things, which can be frightening because the ego, by the way, I just mean these habits. Calling it that, which Buddhists have taken to doing in English, is a little misleading because it sounds like it's a thing. But, your whole set of habits, there's no ground for them, and you say, oh. But each moment you have the possibility of kind of coming off that, it's really open, to going back into your samsaric mind or going forward into wisdom mind. And so, once you've gone back into samsara, then you're going to hide from the openness, and you're either going to go up with, whoopee, whoopee, yes, you're having fun now, or oh, you very, that kind of thing. And either way, remember, the snake has not uncoiled, so there's no flower blooming. And so the bee is not going to get his nectar, so you're not going to get what you want. And the last line, you can't leave a cloak from the fur on the back of a tortoise. Where's the fur? In other words, samsara just is not going to work for you, really. Okay, your existential despair, it's another mind state in your conceptual samsaric mind. And it's wise because it sees that samsara doesn't work. You can get a real feeling of wisdom from some of this depression, but passion and aggression also see samsara doesn't work. That's why you want things and why you're saying, no, it should have been this other way, no, it isn't, it's somebody's fault, and so on. So they don't really, it's just another mind state. It's not the supremely Buddhist mind state or anything. And so in the Buddhist description, this is from some teachings of this particular Lama, who, again, he looks cheerful and kind of like a nice, you'd want a grandfather like that, like they all tend to do. All aspects, now this is about Shunyata in particular, all aspects of every phenomena are completely clear and lucid. The whole universe is open and unobstructed, everything mutually interpenetrating. That's the interdependent aspect. Since all things are naked, clear, and free from obstruction, there is nothing to obtain or realize. That's a different take. It's not that it's meaningless. It's coming from a different place. The everyday practice is simply to develop a complete acceptance and openness to all situations and emotions. Clarity of awareness may in its initial stages be unpleasant or fear-inspiring. If so, here come the instructions, then one should open oneself completely to the pain or the fear and welcome it. In this way, the barriers created by one's habitual emotional reactions and prejudices are broken down. And in meditation, openness is the keynote. The continual stream of new discovery and fresh revelation and inspiration which arises at every moment. Okay, this is what happens now if you're really open. So rather than going on the downward spiral into despair, these other things, of the eternal use of the living Dharma and its wonder, splendor, and so on. All right, different. But, okay, so how do you get there? Because we don't, this is not what normally happens to us. All right, so let me end with two stories and then a picture, both of which are things I observed. One of them was I observed it because it was me. So I was doing a retreat, and I started getting into a state that matched, some of the good descriptions to a certain extent, but it was boring. And I thought, oh, is this, here me. So every other day we had the retreat master come interview us, and I asked, is it possible that one can have realization and not like it? And he said, huh? What so I had to repeat it a couple of times. I don't know whether he really didn't understand or he was just getting me to repeat it. And then he looked at me and he said, who doesn't like what? The next one, I was doing another retreat or program, and it had two teachers that were running it, and they were kind of doing the roles of the good cop and the bad cop. And so one of the other people there that I got friendly with was a woman who, both of us had knee injuries, so we sat together on chairs in the back. And she was a lawyer who was not taking at all kindly to the one that was being hard on us, and the whole way everything was organized. And her legal brief that she kind of developed against the God of her Catholic girlhood was now being applied to that retreat setting, and we would discuss it on breaks. And then one day, she was not beside me. She was off. She had taken her chair and gone off to a corner. And she was sitting in the corner, and she was crying. So Terry said, wanted to go over to her, but the hard on us guy said, oh, leave her alone. They'd had a number of conflicts. So for 3 days, she was in her corner, alternately glaring and crying. And she wouldn't talk to anyone, including her friend, me. And then we were having a little group meeting with the good guy, the good cop, and he just, nobody could withstand his friendliness, and he finally got her, all right, just tell us, you can go back to your corner, but just tell us what's happening with you. And she said she had a vision of the whole universe filled with light that, quote, didn't give a shit about anybody or anything. And then another of the participants piped up and said, oh, well, he's from Britain. I haven't had that experience, but I've had this white hole pursuing me for many years. And I call it the neutrality problem. So two of them asked this nice guy, all right, is there anything that you can say to help us? You can see it's kind of a hot meaninglessness and a cold meaninglessness. And he said, oh, yes, it's very simple. Open the heart. So that's what next week is about. And until next week, remember, don't get caught. This is by popular request that I bring this back and you get to see it again and figure it out. So don't get caught in the downward spiral. And come back next week for the answer.